Well, hello again, and another wonderful e-learning day for us. So we are going to have this video. What I'm going to do in this video is I'm actually going to go over 4 of the problems to elimination, just as review, give you ideas for how to you can approach them as a reminder, and I'll do 2 of the substitution ones, and then it'll be your responsibility to finish up the worksheet and get it turned in. Remember, you are allowed to do this on your own piece of paper. Okay, I know some of you have had issues getting this document to be able to write on yourself on your iPads. That's fine, no big deal. Just do it on your own piece of paper. Make sure I can see all your work, make sure it's legible, and then just take a picture and upload it to your Canvas page. Okay, remember, all of this assignment should be uploaded to the Canvas page, and right now the plan is that we would have a quiz on Thursday, so make sure you are paying attention to the details. And without further ado, let's begin. Let me get rid of my ugly mug. Peace, ugly mug. All right. So number 1, this would be a problem right here. 5x minus 2y equals 15, and 6x minus 2y equals 14. This would be a problem that I would very likely approach using our strategy of elimination. Okay? So, for elimination, we would have to make a decision on which of the 2 variables we want to deal with. Now remember, when we talked about strategies, one of the things that we discussed is that we tend to make less mistakes if we are creating opposites in a problem. So as I look at my variables here, my x's and my y's, okay, I personally would end up preferring to work with the y's. Now, while it is perfectly acceptable in math to deal with this as subtraction, I see too many mistakes happening with that. So my approach would be this. I'm going to take one of these and I'm going to multiply one of them by a -1. So the top one, I'm just kind of leaving alone. I'm not going to mess with it. If you want to think about it, I am multiplying the top one by +1, because that won't change anything. 5x minus 2y equals 15. The bottom one I'm multiplying by -1. That's going to give me -6x, +2y, and -14. And now I have opposites, so that when I add my equations, and I just have to think about addition, when I add my equation, I'm going to get 0. So let's add our equations together. 5x plus -6x is -1x. -2y plus 2y is 0. 15 plus -14 is +1. So I'd have -1x equals 1. Solve my equation by dividing by -1, and x equals -1. Now reminder, I have one of my answers. I have to plug it back in to get the second one. And I am going to choose to use the top equation. So I know the x is -1, so I have 5 times -1 minus 2y equals 15. And this is going to give us our second equation that we need to deal with and solve. So 5 times -1 is -5 minus 2y equals 15. Right? So I would add 5 to both sides. I would get -2y equals 20. Divide both sides by -2. And y would be -10. So I believe my answer is -1, -10. Now if I want to check that for certain, I can plug this back in. 6 times -1 is -6. -2 times -10 is +20, and that adds to be 14. I could check the top one. It does work. Okay, so that is my correct solution. Okay, so that is elimination. Okay, now let's look at number 2 together. With number 2, when we look at this problem with the x's and with the y's, I kind of fall into a situation where there's not like a quick, simple way for me to eliminate either of the variables. So I'm going to use multiplication to help me. And if you're just stuck and you're unsure, once you decide which variables you're using, just use the numbers together. Okay, so for me personally, in this particular problem, I would probably deal with the y's because it's smaller numbers. Okay, but you could choose to work with the x's. Either way is going to be fine. So I'm going to go ahead and work with the x's here. So I'm working with the front 2 numbers. Remember, I want to make opposites. So when I multiply the top by 3, and I'm going to multiply the bottom by 7. Okay, and then I kind of look at it and see if it's going to work. 3 times negative 7 is negative 21x. 7 times 3x is positive 21x. So I'm going to get a negative 21 and a positive 21x. That's going to make opposites like I want, and I'm going to be able to eliminate my x's. So let's go ahead and multiply this out. All the top ones by 3. So that's negative 21x. 3 times 2y is positive 6y. 3 times negative 2 is negative 6. Remember, don't forget, it's all 3 values. On the bottom, everything times 7. Okay, so 7 times 3x is positive 21x. 7 times negative 3y is negative 21y. And 7 times 18 is 126. Add my equations together. And I would get 0. 6y plus negative 21y is negative 15y. Negative 6 plus 126 is 120. So I have negative 15y equals 120. Okay, divide by negative 15. And I am going to get negative 8 for my answer for y. Now I'm going to plug this back in. This time I'm going to choose to use the bottom equation. I just feel like using a different one. So 3x. Now we know the answer for y is now negative 8. So negative 3 times negative 8 equals 18. Negative 3 times negative 8 is positive 24. And I solve this equation. There's my x. So I have to subtract 24 from both sides. And I'm getting 3x equals 18 minus 24 is negative 6. Divide both sides by 3, and I get negative 2. Negative 2, negative 8. Now, if I wanted to test it, remember, I could plug it in. Negative 7 times negative 2 is 14. 2 times negative 8 is negative 16. 14 minus 16 is negative 2. 3 times negative 2 is negative 6. Negative 3 times negative 8 is positive 24, and that does equal 18. It works. So that is definitely our answer. Okay, so that's our elimination stuff. In a little bit here, you'll go ahead and be able to complete 3, 4, 5, and 6. Remember, use this stuff as your help guide. If you're a little bit stuck, use those 2 problems that we've done together, okay? Now, what I'm going to skip ahead in the video is I'm going to go over a couple of these substitution problems. Okay, so these problems are one that we would typically use substitution for. Okay, that would be the typical strategy. Doesn't mean it's the only way to do that. Remember, I've seen some of you creatively use elimination on these. But the idea is this: with substitution, we're looking for a solved equation. So with number 7, I have y equals negative 5x plus 24 and 7x plus 4y equals 18. Well, this top equation, notice it has the y by itself. That would be considered solved for y. So the idea is, I know that y is equal to the negative 5x plus 24. So I'm going to find the y in my other problem, and I'm going to put that stuff in its place. Okay, this particular scenario, we do have a 4 in front of this y, so we are going to have to use multiplication. Okay, so as I write this, I'm going to write this equation, the bottom one that's unsolved, 7x plus 4. Remember, we took out the y, and we're going to replace that y with negative 5x plus 24, and we get equals 18. And this is the equation that we start with. All right, so distribute. 4 times negative 5x is negative 20x. 4 times 24 is 96. These x's are on the same side, so I'm allowed to just add those together. 7x and negative 20x is negative 13x. X is on the left, so move the 96. Minus 96 on both sides. I'm going to get negative 13x equals negative 78. Divide both sides by negative 13, and x equals 6. Okay, so I have one of my answers. Now it's time to plug it back in. Okay, so when I go to plug it back in, this is my answer for x. I'm either using this one or this one. You choose. My personal preference with substitution is I typically use the equation that we would call solved. So I'm going to put my 6 in for the x because that's my x answer. And I do this problem. Negative 5 times 6 plus 24 is negative 6. So x is 6, y is negative 6. And again, if I test it, 7 times 6 is 42. 4 times negative 6 is negative 24. And that is 8. That is 18. Okay? Now, our other type of substitution that is typical is where we see that both of them are solved equations. Okay, so when this happens, we do think about it. X is equal to all of this. X is also equal to 4y minus 7. So x is equal to 7y minus 10 and x is equal to 4y minus 7. That means these two things have to be equal to each other. They're the same. So the theory is I'm putting this 7y minus 10 where that x is. But really I'm just thinking about these two things are equal to each other. So I have 7y minus 10 equal to 4y minus 7. And I can solve that equation. Now I'm going to have to get my letters on one side, so minus 4y on both sides. 7y minus 4y is 3y. Okay, y's are on the left, so I'm going to have to add 10 to both sides. Now we'd get 3y equals 3. Divide both sides by 3, and y is 1. Okay, now remember, plug it back in. So it doesn't matter which equation I use. If I use the top one, I'd have 7 times 1 minus 10. 7 times 1 minus 10 is negative 3. And even if I use the bottom one, I do get the exact same deal. 4 times 1 is 4. Minus 7 is negative 3. It works. Negative 3, positive 1. Okay. Now, use those ideas there to do 9, 10, 11, and 12. When you get to numbers 13 and 14, really you can use either strategy. Okay, I want you to be creative about how you use them. to get those two answers. Make sure you are showing all of your work on this assignment. Okay. Lastly, with number 15, when you do get there, you are allowed to use any of the integers, -9 to 9, to fill in the blanks. You're going to put stuff in the blanks. Okay. That's a 4. No repeats. Okay. And you're trying to make something that actually works. So like the one I just put here, if I put 1 in for x, 9 times 1 minus 6, that is not 5, that's 3. So this one would not work, but you're trying to create a system of equations, okay, and a solution that works, okay, and you're only allowed to use those numbers at most one time each, okay, so it's going to take you a few attempts probably to get this. Took me a few attempts to figure it out, okay, but it is not impossible, and there is way more than one solution, okay, there's more than one way to do it. Okay. Again, please make sure you're showing your work. And we will see if you have extra questions. Email me, and we will try to get them answered for you. All right. We'll see you later. Bye. Adios. Hasta luego. Arrivederci. Ciao.